I didn't know I didn't mute. I'm on mute. Oh God. Oh God. Hi, good evening everyone. So sorry for that. I've been talking since morning. I didn't know my mic is muted. Wow. All right. Good evening everyone. Let me recap what I've been saying since morning. So basically, all I said that we are going to be talking about JavaScript events handling today. And I believe one way or the other, we are all familiar with what event is all about in JavaScript. And every day we're using the internet, we're using web browser, we've come across one thing or the other that deals with events. So whenever we now start talking about it, we start practicing it. I believe that we trigger our memories and let us understand how events works perfectly because we have experience with it. And we're going to be moving into React JS very soon. So our knowledge on JavaScript will help us understanding what React is all about. So we should be prepared for that. And also we should get familiar with um all the read more, make more research, build more projects, practice on couples of PDFs provided, links to articles, and couples of video resources provided for us. And most importantly, we should always have one thing or the other we are working on, ask questions every time, every time. You know, you should, the knowledge shouldn't center around what we give or what we teach alone. We should be able to be curious to learn more on our own. The more you make research, the more you get introduced to more other things to learn about. All right. Uh, are we all ready? We should start. Hello. Can everybody signify you guys can hear me and we should kick start the class for the day? All right. All right. All right. Okay. All right. Good. Good. Wow. That's interesting. Okay. So what we're going to be talking about today, we're going to be talking about JavaScript events because JavaScript event is a whole, it's very wide. Let me just use that word. JavaScript event is very, very wide because we're going to be introducing us to what happen underground whenever we work on events. We're going to talk about how event handling actually works. How does it work? What's the interaction between the event and the HTML and the JavaScript? And also types of events. A lot of stuff happen on the website or on the web page. Events from our keyboard, events from our mouse, events from just touching the website effects, moving mouse around. So we're going to be talking about that and event listeners and handlers. What is event listeners and event handlers? How do they work together? So we're going to explain that to us. All right. So what are JavaScript events? Somebody said they can hear me. Can you guys hear me very well? I don't know if that person is the only one that can't hear me or I'm not that audible. Can you guys hear me? All right. I just want to carry everybody along. So, all right. So, okay. All right. JavaScript events, it's basically an action or occurrence that happen on the browser, which the browser or the user can respond to. It's plain and simple. It's an interaction between the user and the browser. Whenever you want to register, you want to log in on a web page, you click the button, an action will trigger whenever you click the button. That's an event. When we click on, or maybe whenever we move our mouse across something, like maybe on e-commerce page, you move your mouse on the product, and all you see is that the page swipe down on the product to display the product details. Mouse over to move your mouse across something. So examples of the JavaScript events, we have event like clicking a button. That's an action. You click a button, you're expecting something to happen. You trigger an event. You request for something, an action. So submitting a form. Whenever we submit a form, something will definitely happen. Sometimes the form might not get submitted. Sometimes the form will submit the data. What are the things that happen underneath when you click, when you want to submit a form? Sometimes when you click submit the form, you get notified that, oh, you missed an input box. You're supposed to fill something into the input box because it's required. That can happen when you click the form, the button to submit the form. But the action is tied to form events. So these two things might be tricky. We have button events and also form events. So we also have hovering over an element. What does that mean? It basically means moving a mouse. For example, now let's assume this mouse, as I move it across what are JavaScript events, we want to change the color of this JavaScript event, right? Sometimes I believe everybody might have experienced this. Maybe when you visit a website, you can see all the navigation bar on the website, and the moment you click, you move your mouse on the navigation bar, it gets underlined to notify you where your mouse is actually located. So that's hovering, like you mouse over, you hover your mouse on something. And also, we have pressing a key. So basically, this event is not one of the most. I'm very much familiar with the rest of the events. I'm not particularly using a lot of this because I've not encountered any use case for me to implement a key event whereby you click on your mouse to actually make things happen. Well, maybe when you're designing a system like a drag and drop system that requires the user to hold some key down on their keyboard and drag across the web page. So that key down events might actually be needed, whereby we instruct the user to double click a specific button to trigger something on the web page. Maybe you want to verify maybe the user, a specific user is not a robot. You can tell them to, all right, double click a button on your keyboard, a specific button on your keyboard. Maybe you instruct them to double click space or to press enter twice or 3 times. So those are the use case for all these things. Loading a page, that's where one of the window unload events. When a web page loads, what do you want to have? What do you want to happen? The moment a web page loads, you want to get some data out of somewhere to replace it with data. So all these things are, the more we work more on events on JavaScript, we get familiar with all these things. Can everybody hear me? Hello, can you guys hear me? I don't know why my internet is doing this. Hello, 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 hello. So so sorry for the network issue. Apologies for that. All right. So let's continue where I stopped. I'm explaining couples of actions and events that can occur on JavaScript events. All right. So clicking a button, I think I've already explained what that is. It happens it happens where whenever you click a button on a web page, and also submitting a form. This is what happened whenever try to you try to fill a form on a web page. Maybe you want to register and you click submit button. So we there when you click a button, that's a click event. But when you're trying to submit a form, that's a form event. You might get tricky over there because you might decide to put the the action you want user to experience. You might tie that to the form, or you can tie the action you want user to experience to the button. For example, a form validation, input box validation, you can put that on when the user submits the form, when the user actually submit the form, or you can execute the input box validation when the mouse is no longer inside the input box. We're going to show those events very soon. Hovering over an element, moving your mouse over an element. I set an example the other time about the navigation bar on the web page and all the websites. You can clearly see the navigation bar like home, about, and the rest of the navigation bar. But the moment you move your mouse the over the navigation bar, you can experience maybe a change in color or change in text, probably an italic, or underline on the actual navigation bar that the mouse is currently on. Then we have pressing a key. That's something like key instructing the user to press their keyboard to execute a button click on the web page, and loading a web page. That's basically when the web page is the action that executes when the web page loads. So there are a lot of use cases for all these things. You know, now we now have how event actually works. How does all these things works together? Browser or user trigger an event. That's basically how event actually works. You cannot the event listed inside our JavaScript cannot get executed until the browser trigger the event. Kind of events they trigger a browser trigger is something like a loading page. When the page loads, we have something we call unload events. So it's the browser that will trigger such events. We also have the event user trigger. Those are the ones the user actually interacts with, such as clicking a button, submitting a form, moving your mouse over web page, pressing the key. Those are the type of events user interacts with. Now, all these things cannot happen without actually preparing like an action for it. So, event listeners respond and listener response. JavaScript detects the events and executes the assigned code, which is the event handler. So this this type of this is what actually lets the JavaScript code execute. It's called event handlers, but in the JavaScript code, it's called event listeners. All right. So now, how does event handling work? How does it work? Like I explained the other time, Event handling in JavaScript refers to how JavaScript captures events and responds to them. So, what type of events do you want to execute? JavaScript will understand those things whenever you write a code and instruct it to do anything. So, handling is to handle the execution. We also have event listeners. Listeners is like an event that is set up like the English explain. Listening is listening to the event to actually execute. So function that listens to a specific event on an element. So that's what event listener actually means. For example, you want whenever a button is clicked, you want something to happen. You write a function to listen to the click events. So that's what we mean by the event listeners. Now, event handlers, functions or block of code are run when an event occurs. So that's basically how it happens. So now this is now a basic syntax. So this is a basic syntax of how all these things work together. Event handling in JavaScript and HTML, they goes hand in hand because you want all these things to happen on the HTML, on on the DOM. That's what the user interacts with. User don't interact with the HTML and with JavaScript code. They don't see that. They only see the output of the HTML. So HTML attributes, adding event listener directly into the HTML elements. I believe we are familiar with this. When we are talking about JavaScript in our previous class, I explained how to bind JavaScript with HTML, which I explained like we can insert the JavaScript execution into a line of our HTML code, which is something like this. We have the on click. You can write a simple JavaScript code to execute between the HTML code. So now this event over here, button on click. On click is type of events we want to happen whenever the button is clicked. You want an alert to pop up on the web page, right? So an alert will pop up whenever you click this. Also, can you guys hear me? Hello, can you guys hear me? I need a feedback because I don't want anybody to miss out when we dive into the code. The explanation is what we need to grab now when I show the code and I'm introducing us to how it works, because we're going to be doing the JavaScript and HTML hands in hand together. All right, and we all have experience that it might get messy sometimes whenever you are writing the HTML and CSS code and JavaScript code. I need to like swipe and show us on the browser. All right, so now the JavaScript code using add event listeners. So attach event handlers. That is, we use that to attach event handlers to the HTML. So now we now have selectors in JavaScript that is designed to let us select our attributes, IDs, which is the DOM. I believe in the class or previous class, one of our tutors walk us through documents and DOM objects, DOM, JavaScript DOM, and HTML DOM. So now we have a lot of functions to select on the JavaScript. So we have query selector, which is a perfect example right here, to select the button, and add event listeners click function. Now, this first line of code is the same thing as this line of code down over here. we are selecting, we are using JavaScript to target the button, attaching event listener to it, and also specifying the type of event that will happen and passing the function that will happen, which is the handler. All right, I think it's time to show us our code. Let me break this down to us, because three things is going to happen is happening over here. We have the selector, the target, which is the button, the listener, the event listener, type of event, which is the click, and handler. Can we all understand that? Let me show us in the code base. To, I think that will help us clarify it very well. All right, where is the, okay, the code simply goes by this. Okay, let us define it this way, because I notice that we always slow ourselves down whenever we come into class like this. Okay, so let us all focus on this. Can you guys see my screen? Mm, all right. My internet is somewhat slow. Can you guys see my VS code? I'm showing the VS code right now. Can you guys see the VS code? Okay, I should zoom in. All right. I should zoom in very well. Okay, so I've zoomed in. Zoom in. Okay, a lot of people is there to see it. No, no, not yet. No, no, not yet. Okay, it's my network. All right. Let me know when you guys can see it. I need a lot of yes before I can proceed. Okay, you guys can see it now. Good. Happy to hear that. So, all right. All right. All right. So, let us dive into it. We have to define a button. Let me copy this from our previous code, which is this. So we define the button and specify what we want to happen. We want an alert to show. I believe you still remember how to do this, because this is one of the first things we practiced when we started JavaScript. All right. Can we all see this very well? I don't want us to rush. I want everybody to crack this little thing. All right. So let me show this. This is like the second time I'm doing this inline JavaScript for us. So whenever we click this, the button is clicked. That is a simple event handling by embedding it into the HTML. Now, we now need to separate it. And if you can see in the slide, we said that JavaScript event type is the best practice. Using that HTML is not best practice. Using it, separating the JavaScript code is the best practice. All right. So now we now have to remove this JavaScript code we allow assigned to it and specify an ID. We have something called selector. We can use a class or we can use ID. I've explained this in our previous class before. So let us call it button ID. So we now need to define our selector. Const. Okay, let us execute it like this without actually putting it, because it's always good to select document query selector. I will break this down in a bit. So now we select the button. We now need to add the action we want it to perform. So what type of? Now, this is where it gets interesting. When you're working on JavaScript, this is what you get. You see, we have a lot, hundreds of events built into Java. Can you guys hear me? Can you guys hear me? Can you guys hear me? Can you guys see my screen? Can you guys see my screen? Can you guys see my screen? All right, all right. Let us continue. Um, I don't know where the network break out the other time, but let me recap what we did the other time. So we defined the button. I believe everybody. I don't know when the network break out, but if we grab it to where I separate the JavaScript into the query selector over here. All right. So now this query selector, we select all the button on the web page and assign. It will assign a click event to this button and also listen to the handler. All right, this is it. Let me refresh the page. This is what we get. The same thing that we get when we use the inline JavaScript. Okay, so now I will now separate this to show us the power of JavaScript. Now, if I separate this, I want us to pay attention to this thing I'm doing right here, where console.log btn query. I'm trying to see all the document object model, all the properties we can get on this button. You understand? All right. If I refresh this page and go to console, okay, it's returning this specific button. Okay, because we have just one button. All right. So we can now separate the selector and the handler using this btn query dot this. can add the event listener back and separate this handler. This is where it gets tricky. We can now define a function button click. All right, so we put the results we want to execute inside it and pass this button handler into this. Beautiful. Now we can all see this simple and plain. We separate everything. The selector is right here. We have the event listener and the action we want to perform and the handler. Let me explain this to us. We have the listener, the action, and the handler. That is it. So this is the handler. The handler will reference the function wherever we put it. Okay. So if I refresh the page, we still have the same thing. So that's how it works basically. And I will come back to this and show us more about the event. So let me walk us through this one more time to drag us through types of events we can experience in JavaScript. You know, when I show us the list of events on the drop down, the VS Code suggestion right there, it shows tons of events. But we are going to just talk about little out of it and practice it without wasting our time. We just practice click, which we execute by just clicking the button, right? We can also practice double click, trigger when an element is double click, mouse over, trigger when mouse is over an element. All right, we can implement all those things right now. And mouse out, trigger when the mouse leaves an element. We can do everything. And I will also I will also want us to learn more on these mouse events. So let us practice this real quick. So I've designed some of it for us. I want us to let the class be faster. All right, so I designed this. This is a click event. We are familiar with this. We can move this out. Click events. Now, a double click event. So, the selector. All right. I will explain something for us real quick right here. So, this box right here, I want us to remember one thing now. We know that the selector we use the other time is just selecting button on the web page. But right now, we want to target a specific element on the web page. And we can achieve that by using the ID or class. I believe we've talked about this type of selector in our previous class. So now, we are using document.getElement by ID to select a specific ID we assign to this box. The type of event we want to execute right now is called double click event. When we double click on this box, we want this action to happen. We want to trigger these alerts. So now let us execute that. So we have a lot of events in JavaScript. So we are not bound to see now double click. When I double click the box, that will what happen. One, two, it happen. Something will show. All right. Without wasting much of our time, let us move on to another type of events so we can be faster. We want to cover a lot of things today. All right. We also explain. Let me show us. Okay, we've talked about the inline. Explain this already. Um, okay, so the mouse over events. Let us try that and see what will happen. What type of events do we want to use? Mouse over. Like I explained the other time, the use case for this type of mouse over is when you navigate to a web page on the navigation bar, the kind of action that wants to happen. You can use that to change the color or use that to add CSS to the web page. Change the CSS. Now let me execute this mouse over events. That's it. All right, hold on. Mouse over. Good. When you move your mouse onto the JavaScript, onto the box, that's it. It's trigger. When you move the mouse to the box, that's what happens. Okay. So we should also practice the form event. Let me show us the JavaScript form event. Okay. So let me go back to the slide and walk us through it. Okay. So like I explained the other time, the form event is happen when we trigger to submit a form. So we are going to show us this form event and we also implement it right now. So let me clear this up. Clear this up real quick. All right. So we should have the form right here. So we define the form, create the function we want to happen, and submit. Can everybody see this? I hope you guys are not disconnect from the class, or you guys are not getting bored. Okay. All right. So good to hear. My screen is visible. Now, we can implement this form event using the inline JavaScript execution we use the other time. But right now, I will not want us to use this inline execution. So now let me assign an ID to the class test form. Okay, so we have the input box, and we can have it like this. Let me define. Let's put this placeholder. Enter your name. Enter your name. This is the input. Enter name. Enter your name again. Enter your name. Inside this, define our button. Please let me know if you guys cannot hear me, or you guys want me to explain something that is not clear to you guys. We still have time for that. So submit. All right. So let me refresh the page to see this little HTML changes we just implement. Okay, so let's assume this. Let me delete this. All right. So now let's dive into the JavaScript. We want to show something. We want to execute a form. Oh, I forgot that put. So now we are going to talk about something. Let me explain something over here before we move on. If we notice something, when I click this form now, when I click the button, the web page refresh, right? So now we have something we called prevent defaults in the form. We can do that in JavaScript, whereby when you click the form, when you click the button, by default the form will reload. But when you implement that prevent default, the page will not reload. Now, that is the functions of event.prevent default. So when we try and execute it now, and you notice that the page did not reload, don't forget this is why it did not. But now I have not implemented it in the code. That's why the page actually reload. When I click it now, it will reload. Initially, we don't want it to happen. We might want to validate the data on the web page before we actually reload it. So that's where we are going to implement that pivot default. All right. So we're now going to start with the JavaScript. We are going to select the target. We're going to target the form. We select it by the ID. So now this is what we can type of actions, that type of functions they can use to select any element, any tag on our DOM object, which is on the HTML. We can select by get elements by ID, by class name, by elements name, get the element by name, by tag name, and all. But the most common and the most used one is the get elements by ID and class. We are using class as your ID. So now we're using test form. You want to select this test form. What do we want to happen? Dot. Let me do this const form events equals this document does. So now we save this into form events. We now define this. form event, add a listener to it, add event listener. What do you want to happen? What type of execution do we want? We want to when they click submit, when they try to submit the button, what should happen? We put in a callback function, which is the handler. Do you all understand? Event, which should be the handler. It's a function. You can decide to separate this function. Let me do that. Const undo form submission. So this is it. Undo form submission. Put it right here. What should happen when we submit the form? First of all, we want to prevent the web page from loading. Into this, prevent prevent. All right, let me do this. Now, if I do this, the form will not reload. And let's test this. Form submitted. Now, let's try that. If I load the web page and click this submit, the web page will not reload. And it prints form submitted to the console. So that is how to implement form event. And let us have a break, which is what we are going to, we should have taken since morning. So we are going to have a short break, and when we get back, we are going to implement the rest of the event and finish our form. Thank you very much. Hello, can everybody hear me? We are back from the break. All right. Let's give it a minute. The network is somewhat slow, so it's the slide will come up. You guys will see my screen very soon. Can you guys hear me? Hello. Um. All right. We're live. Good to be back. Okay. So let me recap what we started the other time. Okay. So we stop at click form events. I implement something called mm, the events dot predefault that will not allow the form to load, form to reload. So now when we click this, we see form submitted, and let's go back to the code base. All right. So this is the code base. Now I want to do something for us. The data we input into the input box, I want to extract it out so we can see it. So um, let me console.log this. Okay. Okay. All right. This is all the action attached and assigned to the form by JavaScript. So with all this, we can perform a lot of magic, a lot of stuffs on everything relating to the form. So I just want to show us. So everything is just object based. This is the DOM. You can manipulate anything you want on the form using these JavaScript objects. All right. See, a lot of form, a lot of action, a lot of events. All right. Thank you very much. So now notice this. All these events are not supported based on the form action. They are not supported. That's why we can see null, 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 null. Little events. Let me look for specific events that is supported. All right. Looks like we don't have any events supported by. So now we also have targets. Okay. So let me go back to this data and extract the data we print, we input into the text box. So we can now const name equals the document dot get element by ID of name. We put it, okay, let me name this F name. So let me give it an ID equals F name. So with this F name, I can extract any data that is being input into this text box, and also I can validate, we can test maybe the data is empty or not. So this is it. So get element by ID by form name. So now I've gotten it. So now the value. All right. So if I console.log this, log the name, this will print out name. that is input into the form. Any value that is input into the text box, into the input box, text box, will be listed. All right. So let me do that as soon as possible. Okay. Let me input Ade Wale. Submit this. This is what we get. Can everybody see this very well, or it is blurry? All right. All right. I don't know. All right. I think this should looks clear very well. Okay. Okay. Now, hello, can everybody hear me? Now, I explained that the form event, we're practicing the form event by putting the event handler to select the text that we input into the form, into the text box. Anytime we submit, we click on submit. So if I do that one more time, submit. So this is the value we get over here. Now, we can now validate the data inside this text box. We can check whether the data is empty, whether the data is not a text. You know, we are expecting name. If our input number, it should be invalid. Do you understand? Okay. Okay. All right. All right. Now let me validate the input. Okay. Now we have this name. Any value that is inside the DOM element. This is what we have. In fact, let me even do this. Name txt. I can now select the value, const name value to this equals name txt dot value, because now if I use the value, I only limit the get element, because the text DOM is limited to the value alone if I do that. But now we can see other value, other attributes assigned to the text box the moment you extract it from the DOM using this. So if I do this, console.log name text box. So if I save this get element by ID that I extract from the DOM will show us all the attributes, all the actions, all the events that we can perform on the text box using this. But using this text value, text box dot value, I'm instructing this function that I only want the value. That's what this line of code means. All right, let me show us one more time on the web page. I input the name Adewale and I submit. Okay, get the element by ID is only extracting it. All right, let me revert back. Okay, so now we can now implement the validation. Validate value, validate name. We can check check if it's empty on submit. Also, check if it's valid. So two validation, simple thing, two validation. We need to check if name dot length equals 0. That means it's empty. If you console.log, name is empty. Name cannot be empty. That's it. We want to check the length because by default, if the length, if there is no value in it, the length will be empty. Also, we need to check if name.txt, if the we want to check if it's valid because a name must be string. Oh, a name must be string, not number or not email. So we have a function in JavaScript called type of name.txt. Now, this is where we are going to implement all the type of operators in the last class, because I'm the one that take the class. I walk us through all these arithmetic operator, logical operators, and everything. Now, this is what we get on JavaScript. We can check the type of a specific value. Is it Boolean? Is it function? Is it number? Is it string? So now I'm negating this. If this text name type of name text is not equals to string, should inform us that we input the wrong value. Name must be a string or invalid. Okay, let me just use name must be string. So now let's try this. If I refresh the web page, we are still dealing with events in JavaScript though. I'm just showing us more things we can achieve on it, how all these things works hand in hand. So if I submit the form without inputting the value, can we all see that? Can we all see name cannot be empty? Now, if I input number into the input box, can we all see that? Oh, form submitted. I'm coming. This is the last one is not working. The value console.log. Let me check the type of name text. If I input number, it should be number. Oh, now I understand. The string, everything submitted inside this will always be string. Inside the text box will always be string because by default, this input box is returning a string. Yes. All right. But some of the validation we can achieve is checking the length. We can also check the length. Maybe we're expecting them to input their full name, they input one name separated by space. We can all do all those check. All right. So now let's go back to our slide. To finish the slide, to walk us through the slide and get us familiar with more other things we can do. All right. So we stop at form events. Now we also have, okay, I think we've already covered this. So this is basically the explanation of what I just did for us, walking us through all, all the form event execution. Now, explaining the event listeners and handlers to us. I've explained this, how the event listener works. Event listeners works, event listeners is a function that waits for an event to occur on a specific element. The same way the form listener is waiting for us to submit, waiting for an event. And also, we have submit and input. The input trigger when input change in the form. Let me walk us through a function called another event called on change. Let's do that real quick. All right. Mm, okay. All right. Let us get started to it. I will implement the on change on the, so let me implement something for us real quick. We can achieve the on change event using JavaScript, inline JavaScript for it. Let me show us something real quick. We can do this on change. So show alert, text box change. Now, if I refresh this, and when I replay this, refresh this, I input A, B, it's change because the mouse changed. The cursor in the text box is no longer there because the previously, now the active and the value can be checked. Using this on change event, we can detect changes in the text box. Maybe you want to validate the value inside the text box the moment the user cursor or mouse is no longer in the text box. We don't want to wait for them until they click submit button. I hope you understand what I'm saying. Let me recap. You know, the other time we implement event handler for the form. Whenever you click the form, we perform some checks, some validation on the text box using the text box or to get the event listener for the text box, event listener for the form and the button. But right now, another event called on change can be implemented on the text box alone without actually waiting for the sum submission. All right. Now, using this inline text text change, text box change on change, we can also extract the unchanged event into a separate JavaScript by using the event listener for it. Now, this is what we're going to do. It's just simple. Select it like this, const name text, text box. All right, text box dot value name text. Okay, so now we want to implement the unchange slash unchange. The text box is to select the ID, the target. I target the text box. So now we can now do this listener text box dot add event listener, because the action we want to perform is on change events. I want you to list it for us so we can see ABC. Okay, cancel change events. Then the handler, what do you want to happen? I said the other time the handler is a callback, that is a function. So we can now do this. Do it this way. Alert. What alert do we want to show? Text box change. Like that. So we can now alert it. Let me refresh. When you input A, B, click up. When you click out, it's meant to console.log. I'm coming. Is there something wrong? Click out. Oh, I'm sorry. The form, the execution is inside the form. Do we all see what I'm saying? What the issue is? This execution I want to listen is inside this event form submission. Now, this is form submission. Is waiting for me to click submit to execute this on change that I want to implement, which is not what I want. So it's going to be a separate handler on its own. All right. I believe we understand that we want to implement the on change. So I can just do this. Const get txt equals to document dot get elements by ID. What is the value of the f name? That's first name. Then get txt dot this. So now if I run this, it's going to work without any error. So on change A B, click out. That's it. Simple. It's a separate event on its own. All right. Do we understand what I just did right now? We've implemented form events, submit event, key up, key down. I've explained all that. Now this is on change. Okay, this all right. Let let me okay, let's stop here so I can recap. Let me recap. Um I really want us to understand this event because we can we can be talking a lot about this and implementing this one by one by one by one by one. So now this is the last slide before I recap everything one more time. Why do we need to use event listener? As we can see in our code, everything we are doing is dot get elements by ID dot document dot this document dot that event listener event listener event listener. Why? Why do we need it? The simple question is that's the question. And the simple answer is that multiple events can be attached and listen to the same elements. Now we can attach multiple events to the same elements, which is something we've implemented right now in our code. This text box, this text box that allow users to input their name, we've had two listeners to it. The first listener we had to it is on change, which is a separate listener. And we also had it inside the form event listener. Two. And why do we need to do that? It's make our code very easy to read and understand and more cleaner, better code separation. Keep HTML and JavaScript separate, making the code cleaner. If we are to use inline for it, we are not going to type on submit, no, on change here. We write on submit here, which the code will not be cleaner. We input our JavaScript code right here. We also input our JavaScript code right here. We are now mixing JavaScript and HTML code together, which is a bad practice. We should have everything in a separate file if possible, because we can extract all our JavaScript from this HTML code and put it inside JavaScript file and link it here. Let's even do that. We can extract everything out of here, events.js, and put it here. Now we have our HTML code separated from our CSS code and our HTML and JavaScript code. So we have HTML code separate and we have JavaScript code separately. All right. So remove event listeners. We can remove listeners using remove event listeners. All right. That's another event in JavaScript. I will, I would really want every one of us to go and read up more on JavaScript event listeners. We have a lot of resources we can use. Well, I will, after this class, I will send us some PDFs to read. I will share more links for us. We have channels where we communicate. So you guys should ask questions. What do you guys don't understand? We can even schedule a call outside of the class to talk more on issues you guys are facing. We can schedule a call, a general call. All right. This will be the end of our class for today. And I will be waiting for a lot of questions from you guys. Sure. I will share the link to the slide. Okay, let me even do that right now, so you guys can have access to it. So I'm dropping it right now in the channel so everybody can have access to it. Okay. All right. You guys should check the channel, the Telegram channel. I just dropped the link over there. All right, the previous material. Don't worry, all the slides will be provided. Okay. So do we have more questions? Questions. Oh, and also I will push. I don't know if you guys know how to use GitHub. I will push this code to GitHub, so everybody can have access to it. Everybody can have access to it. I will push it to GitHub and share the link for us, so we can all have access to it. So as we are having more class, we are making changes to it. I will be updating it. No, no, no assignment at the moment. No assignment. Yeah, I shared a PDF this afternoon, and I will share more soon. I'll share more. You guys should keep keep up with what you have at the moment. We don't want you to like we have something we called tutorials hell. You don't get stuck in tutorials hell. You should have a roadmap on what you are learning at every specific time. So that's why we are here to guide everybody. You don't rush and learn what you don't need. Be on the right path. All right. Thank you very much. And you guys should have a great weekend and practice more on things we've talked about, because I can tell you guys for the fact that this is just the basic thing we've been doing for the past 3 weeks now. By next month, we are diving into pure JavaScript using React. All right. Thank you very much and have a great night. Good night.